Guys, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Tell us, to kick off, for people that aren't across the whole breathing sort of mantra and what this is about, because obviously everyone's breathing all of the time, but tell us a little bit about what the sort of things that you guys do and why that's important.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll start with a little bit of background from me, from where I come from, and then a little bit about why breathing is so important, I think, for us. So I had a career in the military. I did 13 years. I was posted in active war zones. My main role in the military was training special forces, soldiers and divers mainly in the Navy. And that's where I became interested in performance. And I think that the really interesting part about performance in those stakes where it's high stakes like that, like training for combat, there's a slight different aspect to the training that comes through, say, versus if you're just a professional athlete, right? There's this whole element of mindset. There's this whole element of, will you be willing to do things that just the normal person would not be willing to do? So that's kind of where my background came in. And I was always interested in why somebody's body would keep going when their mindset would give out, right? What was this thing where, is it what we think about that actually affects what we do? Or is it something that we get physically exhausted? And that led me down the road of looking at the nervous system, looking at health in general, looking at where energy comes from, in our body, from everything from food to water and all these sorts of things. And where it all gets tied into a really neat bundle is in breathing, really. And then if you extract that further and go deeper into it, it's really a story about how oxygen and CO2 flow through your body, because oxygen and CO2 affect your blood pH. Your blood pH affects hormone release, neurotransmitters in the brain. So you name all the things that control mood, hormones, the way you feel, the way you show up, even right down to your presence, how you are around other people, will be related to your breathing. So literally how you breathe is how you live. And then further to that, what we kind of discovered on this journey, we went down the rabbit hole of all the ancient versions of breathing, all the yogic techniques or the Asian versions. Every society, every group on the planet that's been here since time immemorial has got some reference to breathing in their literature. Right? Like it's referenced all the way through everything. So we were like, wow, this is it's a deep dive hole to go into that hole, right? Like into the whole mystical side of it. But then there's this whole science side that really needed to be tied into that part, because, people can have some really profound experiences breathing, not only just from your day-to-day performance, but you can have novel experiences that help you completely change your personality, right? All through breathing.
I've seen that in some of
your you've experienced that, man, right? So so that was really interesting. So we're like, well, how does this work? And if we're able to say, for example, we've been in front of a whole audience full of dentists, right? In that kind of clinical setting, well, you have to be able to then explain to people in that setting that CO2, the relationship between how oxygen gets into your body is really dependent on CO2. So if your CO2 levels are low, you're going to have things like brain fog. You're going to have things like you're going to have outbursts of anger. You're going to have mood swings. You're going to have things that mimic even autoimmune symptoms. So a lot of the time people are being misdiagnosed with things. They'll turn up to a doctor. The doctor will say, I've tested you for A, B, and C. I can't find anything. And often it is a breathing problem. And we're currently studying with a professor that's been in this area for 40 years, and he's got the data on it that just basically lays out and says most of the misdiagnosis, it will be cleared up if you add checking people's breathing into the thing. So we've taken all of that, we've digested it, and we've broken it down into what's practical. Like what can people action right now, right here, that will change the way they show up, it'll change the way they feel, and it'll even have an effect on their longevity. And I think that part of the challenge that we have in that is that it's so simple, and it's like that old adage of where the gold is, no one ever thinks to look where the gold is, right? Like, but it's right under your nose in this case, right? Like it's basically
inside.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Literally, yes.
So that's my take on it. Angie will fill in her bits, I'm sure.
Well, for me, I was such a large push to go deeper into this because of how it literally changed my personality. Like we were talking about before, I come from a Hollywood background. So, for me, it's almost like a war zone there, it literally kind of felt like that. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, but I knew it wasn't for me. So when I met this man and moved here to Australia, and then basically, did the transition from the 20s to, married with children and in my 30s and now close to 40. It's like going through these very pivotal changes in life. They're like transition phases in life can be really rocky sometimes. So warlike zones, in some cases.
Yes. Toddlers will do that, definitely.
Yeah, so that's life. So for me, it was after second baby when I was just getting really angry and snappy at Shane and the girls that we have. They're now 8 and 11, and I became somebody. I'm like, this is not fun anymore. I'm not enjoying this, and I was like, I have no reason.
Nobody was enjoying it.
Yeah, no one was. But I really had nothing to complain about it. I was just angry for no reason, right? And then I would find reasons to be angry, which was kind of like even worse because then Shane was like, well, they're not real reasons. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So when we started looking into all of this, I spent probably a good 15 years in self-development before finding breathing techniques. And like in my mind, I knew I needed to think positive. I knew I needed to look after my physical body. I knew I needed to drink more water. I knew, but there was a difference between knowing how to feel good and actually feeling good. And for me, that was the missing link, because I realized is that like, even though I had a great life, I was still worried about something. And there was like this underlying layer of anxiety that was putting my chemical balance, completely out of whack, and therefore changing my personality and turning me into some cranky wife that I never thought I would ever become. So then, we got into breathing and we got into cold immersions, and that like literally froze the grumpy out of me for the first few times. Have you been in ice baths with us as well?
I haven't, but I missed that one last time. But
yes.
I've got a sauna at home and I do the hot cold therapy, and for me, it's amazing. It's like it wakes you up or it chills you out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's how breathing is for me as well. It's like breathing cold and hot, like all those three it's like a magical wand where if I need to feel better, I'll go to one or all three of those. And it just helps to bring the relaxation into the body. Breathing helps to balance out the O2 and CO2. So therefore I felt like, before I was kind of like pushing shit uphill, trying to feel better, when all it was is I just needed to watch my breathing habits and notice when I was putting myself into a panicky state before I got there. And so then I would go into a breathing exercise. We at the start of it, we called it angry breathing, where I would go and just breathe really angry and then get the energy out and then come back.
It's actually a very technical version of doing it though. Like it is worthwhile expressing the emotions into the breathing as well. That's one technique that we do use.